Are you ready to call the roll?
We're ready to call the roll if you are.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time hearing. Copeland?
Here.
McCain?
Here.
Wertz? Hyen?
Here.
Johnson?
Here.
Rust?
Here.
Hanfelder?
Here.
Trent?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, now it's time for public comment. Do we have anyone wishing to address the board? As you recall, the format for our board is that everyone is given 3 minutes to address the board. Okay, looks like there's no public comment. Next item on the agenda is recognition of our student trustee, Sam Copeland.
Yeah, so I'd like to, first of all, thank Sam for his fantastic work this past year as our student trustee, and just wish him all the best. I understand Sam will still be here for this next year, so look forward to being engaged with him continually. And at this point, pass it back over to Julie, and we'll introduce our new student trustee. So, Julie.
I want to give you this first.
Yes. And the plaque. So, Joel, you can come on up.
Okay, our newly appointed student trustee, Joel Barker, will now take the oath of office. Kevin Russ will do the honors.
I'm just doing the honors, but he's actually doing the whole thing. I, Joe Barker, having been duly appointed to the office of member of the Board of Trustees of the Community College District Department 36, Park Community College, Madison, Newton, Jersey, Calhoun, Greene, Morgan, Scott County, State of Illinois. Aforesaid, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the State of Illinois, that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the Welcome, Joel.
Welcome. Here you are.
Okay, so at this point, I want to announce that we would like to move 2 items on the agenda, 2 action items, A and B, to later in the agenda after the closed session. So would anyone like to make a motion to move those items?
So move.
Do we have a second? Roll call.
I'm sorry, I just want to be sure. Action items A and B are moving to after the closed session. Is that correct?
Yes, we're moving the 2 items. The motion is to move the 2 items to after the closed session.
Okay. And then the first was Kevin Rust. Who was second?
Mr. Hanfelder, right?
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes.
Barker?
Your first vote.
I couldn't hear which items they're going to move.
They're going to
Volume.
move action items A and B, which are amended policy 301 and amended policy 302 until after the closed session.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm calling roll now. And we had Barker.
Yes.
Thank you. Rust,
Yes.
Hanfelder,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
McCain,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes.
Thank you. Johnson?
Yes. Okay, motion passed. Dr. Traska?
Yep.
Budget and health enrollment
Sure,
update?
we'll do that. So I'll do the budget update here, and then, I'm sorry, the budget update, and then Katie Adams will come up and do the enrollment update. So a little of a narrative here presented. So revenues and expenditures, again, as has been the year's trend, we are still projecting a loss in tuition and fees compared to the budget. The projected total tuition and fee revenue currently is just under $8.2 million. Local funding, state sources, and other sources such as office services, health services, and dental clinic continue to come in as expected and near target. Indirect costs from grants continue to produce a steady amount of revenue. And as you recall, we, as part of our reorg last year, we created a Department of College Effectiveness and Grant Management, which is doing a wonderful job of helping vet grants and manage the processes those grants need to go through to meet their outcomes. On the expenditure side, our total expenses are still staying well under the total budget. We continue to hire team members into open positions and newly approved positions that are in line with the reorganization. We have had approximately 25 to 40 positions open at one time and realized some savings during the gaps as we have carefully evaluated and selected individuals for positions. As we slowly return to this post-COVID normal, team members are able to start taking advantage of more training and professional development opportunities, and we are starting to see more supplies and materials being purchased as they are relevant to the return to campus. To that point, all in all, and I know this came up in the Finance Committee the other day, one of the imperatives that we took as we started this journey sort of reimagine Lewis and Clark and become more efficient stewards of not only our finances, but I think of how we hold value in our students and in our community. So I want to commend the full team for truly really good management of budget, applying budget where there's relevance. This year, as we navigate through our budget planning process, we're taking an even tighter look and closer look, I should say, to the correlation of our budget and our strategy moving forward. So I think as we continue to evaluate and analyze and implement new strategies and changes, I think we'll continue to see these efficiencies, but we'll begin looking at the college in a different light as we continue to invest in processes and people. So I want to thank everyone. And as a final point, we are doing well on the budget end. We, again, are moving in the right direction. So thank you for the opportunity. Pass it along to Dr. Adams.
Good evening, everyone. So the enrollment update, I bring you data for both fall term and summer term. So for fall term 22, enrollment opened on March 14th. We've conducted 9 early birds, 375 students to date. Current enrollment is 832 with 53 non-credit students, so total enrolled credit is 779. That is a 34.8% increase year over year to this date. We have total credit hours of 8,830, which is a 50.7% increase year over year to date. Total credit hours, 8,830 compared to 5,860 a year ago on 4/11. So that's exciting for us. One of the other highlights of that is there's 234 first-time students. So those are students coming out of high school. So we are getting a good return on the work that we're doing in the high schools with the early birds, the discovery days. So we're excited to see those numbers. For summer, not exactly the same story. So we are, summer term starts on May 23rd for the 12-week term and June 6th for the 8-week term. So we still have some time for enrollment. Total enrolled is 663 with 139 non-credit, so it's 524 for credit-bearing students. That is actually down 13% year to date, 602 in the previous year. Total credit hours are 2786 against 3180, which is down 12.4%. So we have some work to do with our summer numbers. Really working, you know, a lot of times with transient students, and those are students who live in the area, attend a four-year school somewhere else, and come home for the summer, and they want to do general education courses. A lot of times those students register at the last minute because they come home and they're like, you know, mom or dad says, go pick up a class since you're only working part-time or whatever. So we do expect to see some improvement there. And then we are working on some open houses for summer. Those will be targeted at non-traditional students. We currently have, in cooperation and collaboration with marketing, there's 12 current marketing campaigns that are underway. Those target everything from students who have stopped out or dropped out over a period of time, graduating high school students, students who are somewhere in the process but haven't quite completed that entire process, so trying to help them get past the finish line, career education, general community, working adults, and then neighborhood stuff. We are also looking at branding our dual credit. Typically, we do not register our dual credit students until like the third or fourth week of fall term. But those students registered with their high schools in January and February. So we are gonna go out with our high school liaisons and try to move that up so that we can book that enrollment before those students leave for summer break out of the high schools. So that should also help us have a better idea of where we're at with our dual enrollment for credit students before we finish up this school year. I'll take any questions you might have.
Oh, sorry.
Katie, we used to get a report of our enrollment on a kind of on a week-by-week basis. Haven't seen one for a while, I don't think. Has that been discontinued?
That's a Kent Shuffle report that is not currently being published. We have a different report that we use now. We're about to change it again because I have some other things that I want to see included on it.
Are you planning on sharing that with the board?
Yeah, that'll be shared. We're still flushing through some of the changes based upon the discovery we had a couple of months ago. So we're trying to have a clearer definition of enrollment so that when we present it, that it's transparent and we know exactly sort of how Dr. Adams has presented. We know exactly what students we're talking about, what the numbers were last year, what they are in the current time, and we want to keep moving forward in that direction. So once that is shaped, I think is our plan to sort of present it, really going back to perhaps a weekly or a bi-weekly update for the board and the full campus team.
Right.
That's the plan.
Ideal, we would have a dashboard that we could look at that would be real time, that would provide us that type of data. And that prototype is underway with a mover team on campus.
And that dashboard will be available to the board, is that correct?
Yes, everything will be available to everyone. So.
Now, you presented some positive, well, sort of positive information there. I just happened to pick up the Iccb spring report, and it's showing that Lewis and Clark is at the very bottom when it comes to enrollment decrease. I mean, we're just from year to year, we're down 20%. And there is one college, a smaller college, Wabash Valley, that's lower than us. But other than that, there's nobody even close. I'll take that back. There is one, Prairie State, that's low too. So we're tied for second to the bottom, looks like. And then, I mean, I'm looking at the trend from 2016, 2018 rather. I mean, we're down 43%. And it's great to hear about the programs for marketing and that, but on your next report, maybe we could hear a little bit more meat about how we're going to turn this around.
We are currently working on a strategic enrollment management plan that would be a 36-month plan. So we should have that available for the board probably sometime over the summer. We have to do some data cleanup and we need to know what our definitions are on the data and things like that. Once we know what the baseline truly is, then we can move forward with the plan. we already have a lot of that plan written. We're just struggling with the data, like the baseline data. So,
I'm not necessarily so interested in the data. I mean, it's a scorecard, and it's good to, we have to have it, of course. But what I'm more interested in is what people are going to actually do. I know, like, for example, I thought it was a great idea, but I'm not sure where it stands. We're going to have the faculty help recruit students to Lewis and Clark.
that happens every day here, sir. Every day we have faculty that are out in the field assisting us with recruitment. Sometimes we're with them, sometimes they're by themselves. The problem is that there is no database today on campus where we can track all of that. So we are working to update an Ellucian product called CRM Recruit that the college bought a little while ago so that we can get it fully implemented. That would allow everybody to use the same database to track all of the sales activity. I mean, this is really sales activity, right? It's contact activity, it's community building, it's friend building. We would all be logging our activity so that we can all see exactly who's talking to whom and what company in the community, what high school, what superintendent, what school district, and we would be able to see more the productivity. You're asking for pure productivity numbers. I do not have a system today to track that, but we are working towards that, and we plan to be there for the start, like in the summer when we start our next recruitment cycle.
Just one last question.
Sure.
It seems to me, and then maybe I'm off, but it would seem to me like what really attracts students to our community college are programs. And I'd like to hear, will that be something that you'll be reporting on, about what programs we're looking at, what programs are in the pipeline, and how?
My colleague, Dr. Lane, will be giving you an update this evening on new programs and newer programs that we're offering.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
that's the academic affairs side.
Okay.
I have a couple questions. Oh, I'm sorry, Julie, go ahead. I see that we have 335 freshmen already registered for the fall. Do we have any idea how many of those 335 are currently high school seniors? I mean, I guess where I'm coming from, it's kind of the same place as Kevin, is I'm not sure how we measure our recruiting efforts for the people we have, even part-time, going to high schools. There's no way to measure that right now.
We'll be able to track that in CRM Recruit because they'll have assignments and they'll have assigned high schools, which they have now. We just don't have a database to track their activity. We're tracking it on this paper, which isn't very good, but it's what we have. So currently we are tracking their activity, we're tracking their contact, our embedded high school liaisons, which are people who actually spend a day or 2 days in the high school per week. We are looking at their activity, the number of students they have contact with, the number of meetings they attend with the counselors, the activities that they're planning. So we are monitoring their activity. Once we get the CRM Recruit system in, we'll be able to track every person that interacts with that student. So I'll be able to give you the analytics of the activity. And that's why there's a request in tonight's stuff that will address that.
Yeah, that's what we need. Also, the early bird events, were they all held here, or were some of them held at high schools?
We held one in Edwardsville at our N.O. Nelson campus, and all the rest were held here. Moving forward, we're going to change the format of those. We're going to change up some things and do some admitted student days and some other things. So we'll finish planning all that in the summer.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly.
Thank you. Thanks for the question.
Okay, one more question. You stated that you have 12 marketing campaigns going. What does that mean? That's a general term. Like, what's a couple examples of a marketing campaign?
So we actually pull student lists that meet certain criteria. So for instance, students who have stopped out. So you would look at a student who stopped out in the past 36 months, look at what major they're in, and then we actually send out email campaigns through CRM Recruit to those students. Sometimes it's Facebook marketing directed at those folks. Applied, not registered. So somebody has applied to the college, but they haven't had contact about advising or registering. So it's kind of a, hi, are you there? Let's get in touch. Let's, give me a call, text me. So really just trying to spur interest. And they can be, really anything. We've got some for parents, some for displaced workers, things like that.
Who is doing that? Like what department, or is it the teachers or faculty?
So we work with the marketing department, and
Like who's doing the emails, for example, marketing?
right. So
Okay.
they're done by the professional company. We then tweak them and make them ours. And then we use the software that we have available to us with the database of names. And like I said, sometimes Laura uses Facebook or other social media to make those contacts as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we'll move on to the Omnibus Agenda. The Omnibus Agenda is presented for a vote. Is there any item the board would like to be held out and voted separately?
We also
I'd like O and Q to be voted on separately.
Say it again.
O and Q,
O and Q. Dr. Traska, was there something you wanted to say? Or-
No, I was going to say the audit was before Omnibus.
Oh, did I miss that?
Yeah, that's okay. We can go back to that one, so.
Oh, yeah, it's not on my little list here, okay. All right, so we'll pull out O and Q. And do I have a motion to approve the omnibus agenda with O and Q pulled out?
Motion. Second.
Mr. Hanfelder, second, okay. Any discussion? Okay, Sue, if you'd call the roll.
Barker,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
Hanfelder,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
McCain,
Yes.
Hyen,
yes,
Johnson,
Yes.
and Rust.
Yes.
Okay, motion approved. All right, so do I have a motion to approve O, item O?
Motion.
Mr. Wertz first, all right. Do I have a second? Okay, second. Any discussion?
I'd like to have some sort of a presentation of the information, I guess.
This is on item O, on the resignations, retirements, employment.
Yeah, I guess I'm assuming there was some reason why we separated it out, so what do we have to discuss? Or what information do you want to present? Is there anything that's controversial or?
No?
Mr. Hyen, do you have any questions on this one?
no, I just, from what I read, I'm going to vote no on it.
Is there
I
any other
read-
discussion? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I read the material and I just didn't think it was something I wanted to vote for. Thank you.
Is that for both items or by item O?
I was doing them separately.
Oh, okay.
All right, any other discussion? All right, call the roll. Sue, could you call the roll?
Yes. Are you there?
Hello, Sue?
Sue?
We're ready to call the roll.
Oh, she's got a.
I guess I better,
You're good now.
okay, okay. Who was the second on that vote?
It was Dwight and Chuck? No, Dwight and Larry.
Okay,
Dwight and
thank
Larry.
you. Okay. Barker,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
McCain,
yes,
Hyen,
No,
Johnson,
Yes.
Rust,
Yes.
Hanfelder.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll do Q and then we'll do the audit, so don't let me go on with that. Okay.
We got you.
So do I have a motion to approve item Q, which is
On page-
organization restructure?
Restructure.
Motion.
Mr. Wertz, motion?
second,
Thank
Brenda,
you.
second. Okay, any discussion?
Yeah, a little bit. I guess I'm concerned about adding a full-time position with the shrinking enrollment, and I could probably say that about every new position that would be proposed, I suppose. But this particular one has been a part-time position for a long time. I believe from reading in the papers, at least, we have a pretty successful sports program. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about what the reasoning is and justification for why we need a full-time athletic director.
Okay, I'll take that. So the athletic reorganization topic started last year, and we decided that we would put it off until we had a full-time vice president for student affairs. So as part of this second phase of reorg, we put together 3 work teams, one specifically focused on athletics, and the other 2 focused on both CTE West as well as our competency-based education initiatives. So with the athletic team, there was a recommendation that in order to move athletics forward, we needed a focused, intentional, full-time athletic director. We have not ever had a full-time athletic director. We've had a split position, which was part-time coach, part-time athletic director, and I would argue that that wasn't very effective and efficient. So we've recreated the athletic director position to create more leadership, more focus, both on the intramural athletic side as well as the competitive athletic side. And we are bringing forward a proposal that will allow us to move athletics forward. I think when you talk about enrollment, athletics is an enormous driver of enrollment. 2/3 of our athletes are international students, and they bring a very unique dynamic to our campus culture and to the characteristic of our campus. And there's a lot of work to do in athletics, and we need a full-time director to be able to facilitate that work forward. So before we begin to bring additional changes to athletics, we would like to have a person in that role who's dedicated and committed to athletics. There are compliance variables, there are leadership variables that are really important for us to move forward. This salary is based upon the salary that the previous athletic director and men's basketball coach was making. And so the range on this is between $70,000 and $105,000. I think wherever this lands, we'll probably have some budget left over to be able to address the men's basketball coach. We're not prepared to talk about the changes that we are beginning to consider for athletics. We really want to wait until a full-time person comes in, but I am comfortable saying that we'll likely make some changes prior to that to allow the new athletic director to have somewhat of a clean slate. So in terms of a new position, I wouldn't consider it a new position, but we are upping the position to full-time versus part-time. And having had experience with part-time athletic directors, it doesn't work. It's very difficult. I think we have the opportunity to grow our athletics program, and again, just not to be redundant, but we do need the full-time role. So, and we had a team of leadership members work on that, had good feedback, And so we feel very comfortable with this investment.
What, did you intend to do something with the Division II basketball program? I think, didn't we move about 3 years
Yeah.
ago? Yeah, we went to Division II.
Yeah, so right now, men and women's soccer is Division I, if I recall correctly, and the rest of our sports are Division II. Other than tennis, correct me if I'm wrong, Katie, is that, yeah, tennis. So tennis, men and women's soccer.
So would you be, I mean, I don't, maybe you don't want to comment on that, and that's fine, but would you be thinking of moving the basketball to Division I?
It all depends because, you know, the difference between Division I and Division II are scholarship implications. That's the primary, you know, and also the competitive sort of opportunities for athletics for each respective team. Like, for example, tennis has a very thin schedule because of just other teams that are in the same division. So that creates travel budget, that creates other, one could argue, barriers for those teams to be able to compete and for those student athletes to be able to be set up perhaps to move on to a Division I college after Lewis and Clark. So I think, you know, to your question, you know, again, that's where I would look for the sort of counsel and guidance of a well-seasoned, experienced athletic director to come in, work directly with me to be able to start making those more ground-level decisions as it relates to athletics. And as it relates to sports, I mean, there may be opportunities there to also be more efficient. And I'm saying this not to sort of make people nervous, but, you know, reorgs involve a clear, objective analysis of what we're doing, what we're not doing, and how we want to move this thing forward. So, I mean, all these pieces are sort of playing together, and I think, you know, there's a lot of good work happening. I think we're beginning to see those results, but it takes time. I mean, you know, it's very complicated at times, so. Because we're working
Sounds
with people.
sounds like a lot of money.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, we're going to be spending another $40,000 or more for a full-time athletic director. We're going to be, and to go forward, I mean, whenever I hear the word forward, that means money, spend more money, right?
well, I would say we're not spending money, we're investing dollars into this campus, and we are within our budget. So, you know, as we make these investments, we are also very cognizant of our budget, where we're at, where we're going. We're not going to bring you something that we can't afford to do, and that isn't important to the trajectory of the institution. So, you know, I also think it's how we perceive the work that we're doing. If we're perceiving it as an expense, then that's one perception. If we're perceiving it as an investment, you know, sometimes you have to take some risk to see this thing get better.
Well, the return on the investment is more students, right?
That's the reason we're doing this.
So does that mean that there are some of our sports that are underrepresented? I mean, they've only got 80% of the number of team players that they could have?
I think every single one of our athletic teams has opportunities to grow. And one of the vulnerabilities that we see, and this is out there, is we have some coaches that are full-time, some that are part-time, some that are 9-month, 9.5-month, 10-month contracts, some on stipends. I mean, there's a lot to unravel there, so we need consistency. I mean, when we have consistency, I think that will yield consistent results, and, you know, that requires deliberate leadership. You know, everyone is, you know, believe it or not, sort of, you know, treading pretty thin in terms of trying to manage their responsibilities that they have, so trying to absorb athletic director responsibilities into another role basically says we're not interested in investing fully in athletics. And as an action team, we feel athletics is a very important driver to our enrollment and also a very important driver to attracting students and community to our campus. So we hope to be able to have the support of the board to be able to continue that journey forward and prove to all of you that we're really doing good work here.
Well, you commented that we have part-time coaches. I thought Doug did a good job handling basketball and being the athletic director. And, you know, I'm really opposed to spending that kind of money on an athletic director full-time when Doug was able to handle it and did a good job.
Yes.
Okay. Sue, would you call the roll?
Okay, Barker,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
McCain,
yes,
Hyen,
No,
Johnson,
Yes.
Rust,
Present.
Hanfelder,
Present.
and Trent.
Yes.
Okay,
So that-
motion carried.
Motion carried, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, now we can have our audit presentation. I apologize for making you sit through that.
I know you guys have the audit, but so I handed out this 5-year summary and just kind of a synopsis. It's a little bit easier to go through, and you can kind of see where it's going over the last 5 years. The first page is just kind of the highlights of the last 5 years, or at least what happened in the last year. The first 4 items in there is really it's kind of a carryover from past years. You've had a clean opinion, which is an unmodified opinion. We haven't had any kind of problems, and we have to do significant work for internal controls and on compliance work for the federal programs and the level of federal monies you get for the federal student, like for just student aid in general, and this year for all the COVID money that you received. And we didn't have any kind of problems with that. We didn't have any kind of findings for compliance or internal controls, so that's very good. There are other items, I listed several down there of just things that happened this year, and I'll kind of hit those as I go through these 5 pages that are following it. The first page with numbers on it is statement. This is, get my glasses on. This is a 5-year summary of the statement of net position, which is the balance sheet for the college. Your total assets really didn't change a whole lot really over the 5-year span, especially not from last year. You had about $232 million in assets. Your deferred outflows really didn't change a whole lot either. It went from about 1.6 to 1.3 million. Probably the biggest change on here is the total. Is that me? It's probably the weather. Oh. That's a Kevin alert. The biggest thing was the total liabilities this year is about $148 million, and that's been consistently down. You can see 2 years ago in 2019 is about $172 million. It's just a big result of the overall debt that's decreased in this time period. And I'll hit that also on the last page. The offset to that, of course, is the net position. Your net position at the end of the year is about $80 million, $80.5 million. It's up from $69 million the past year, and it really goes back to 2018 where you're about the same level what you were this year. The following page is your comparative statement of unrestricted fund revenues and expenditures. And this is where overall it looks like the balance sheet looks like a fairly normal year, but then we know it hasn't been a fairly normal year with all the COVID activity and things actually not happening because of the COVID in the current year. Your total revenues for the unrestricted funds are about $31.4 million. That is down from the previous several years. A big part of that is, of course, is the tuition fees. Just the general enrollment is what it was this year. And then also the service revenues of just not being able to do anything. Those monies were down in this year compared to the past years. Another big item this year was investment revenue, and this goes across restricted and unrestricted funds. And if you look at the investment schedule, what Mary provides us over the last 2 years, the rates just got beat up so badly. They were upper twos, around at least 2.5. Now this year they've taken probably a 10 times cut. If you look at the latest investments, they're all like 0.25%, 2.3%. They're just nowhere close to where they were in last year. And you kind of almost, when you have some monies put away, you almost kind of look at that, or take that investment revenue for granted at times and think it's going to be there. And you get a year like this where it just disappears on you, and those monies just, you know, there's no sure recovery when those interest rates are going to come back. I know they stepped up a little bit, but they were just way off in the current year. But along the same lines, the revenues were down about 3.31 to the $31.4 million. Your expenditures were also down the current year, about $28.8 million. And you compare the last 2 years, it was always $31 million those last 2 years. That 2018 and 17 year, those numbers are sort of inflated. It's the on behalf revenue, which is paid for the retirement payments. And in those first 2 years, back in 17 and 18, those were reported under restricted funds, and then they started getting reported in the restricted funds, which is why that line is empty in these 2 years. And because of that, the following page, I did the same summary with those monies taken out. And you can see those revenues across the whole 5-year frame, they were pretty much the same all the way through for the total amounts for the unrestricted funds. In 2017, about $31.1 million, and this year about $31.4 million. And while at the same time your expenditures did decrease from almost $30 million in 17 down to 28.8 in this year. So you did have an excess this year in unrestricted funds. The following page is the restricted fund monies, and this also had some strange differences this year. The biggest one is probably in the federal grants and contracts. That number went from about $11.5 million up to over $14 million this year. And the biggest part of that, again, goes back to the COVID money received for different areas. This is about $4.9 million this year. The Pell money kind of offset that a little bit, and it did go down because obviously that's kind of related to the enrollment numbers. So the Pell money was down, but overall your total revenues went up basically because of the support you received through the COVID. Also, like I just hit on the previous page, investment revenue this year, you can see that really took a hit down to $26,000 from looking at almost over $600,000 in the previous year. The total bottom line after transfers for the debt and for operations, you had a slight deficit this year, about $691,000 in these restricted funds. And that's, last year you had an increase about $533,000. It kind of varies over the yearly times. The other big number on here is the on behalf payments. And these are those payments that are made, that are calculated by CSRS internally, what they think that the actuarial values are going to be for retirements in the future. And those amounts went from $14.7 million up to $18.2 million over just this 3-year time period, and what the state is contributing to the retirement fund. So, the final page is, again, I kind of hit on this earlier, the debt summary, and this is a big part of why your liabilities were down this year. The debt at the end of the year, outstanding debt was $94 million this year, and going back to 2017 is about $133 million. So you had a significant increase, not only this year, but over this 5-year time span. So obviously that's very good. I know these are only 5 pages, but it really does summarize everything that really goes through the audit. There's so much in the audit that is compliance type numbers, enrollment type numbers that aren't really necessarily, they're tied to financial, but they're not really the financial meat like these 5 pages are. I'd be happy to answer any questions about the audit or anything in the summary if anybody has anything.
Okay, are we good? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for being patient. Okay, so we'll go back to item C under action items, remote work policy.
Right, so Gabe and Lori will come up and help facilitate those, and if there's any questions, please do let us know. And again, these also were vetted through our personnel and policy committees.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the remote work policy?
So moved.
Dwight,
Second.
Larry, or Brenda, take your pick.
Larry can take it.
Any discussion? So you guys are happy with this, I take it?
If you have questions, we'll be happy to answer.
No,
them.
I didn't expect you to talk.
Okay.
But, so this is it now? It's the final thing? Don't need to adjust it anymore?
Correct.
Yeah, one thing I think, so assuming that the board adopts the policy, it will take, we do have some forms that we prepared as part of, there was a mover team that worked on this, members of leadership, some forms that will go through final review. So, you know, I know that there will probably be a hope that tomorrow will be rocking and rolling and ready to go, but we do have a little bit of work to, you know, get things up and going, assuming the board doesn't have any questions and is comfortable with the policy, so.
Thank you.
Okay, call for the vote.
Barker,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
McCain,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Rust,
Yes.
Hanfelder.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Motion carried. Thank you for your work on that. Okay, the next item, D, anti-bullying policy. Do I have a motion to approve the anti-bullying policy?
Motion.
So move.
Larry, then Chuck. Any discussion? Okay. Call for the vote. Sue?
Barker,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
Hanfelder,
Yes.
McCain,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Rust.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Motion carried. Okay, item E, use of force policy. Do I have a motion to approve the use of force policy? Larry?
Second.
Chuck? Okay, any discussion?
Well, it's, I just want to throw something out for especially on the two previous policies. Those were difficult to put together, I'm sure, and they're going to be evolving, aren't they? I mean,
Yes.
so you said something about your work was done, or somebody said that. Your work is not done yet, is
Yeah,
it?
I would say those are living documents, for sure.
I
Yeah,
would say that
thank you.
about most policy.
You could take a little break, though.
I have a question. Larry, you commented about use of force policy that needed to be changed if a car was driving towards one of our officers. He should have the authority to fire at that if his life is in danger. Has that been changed to your satisfaction? Or Gabe, maybe you can answer that.
To my satisfaction, it has been, yes.
Yes, that did get updated. I believe I sent that around to the board members as well, just to note that change, because both Mr. Hanfelder and Mr. Trent had suggested making that change following our policy committee meeting, so. And we did consult with the board attorney on that as well.
All right, let's call for the vote. Sue?
Barker,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
Hanfelder,
Yes.
McCain,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Rust.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried.
Motion carried. Okay, item F, new AAS degree and certificate of proficiency, fire service leadership. Do I have a motion to approve this item?
Motion.
Dwight?
Second.
Chuck? Any discussion? Okay, call for the vote. Sue, we're ready for a call for the vote.
I'm sorry, it wasn't responding. Barker,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
Hanfelder,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
McCain,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes,
Rust.
Yes.
Thank you.
motion carried. Okay, move on to item G, authorization to enter into a national gas supply agreement. Do I have a motion to authorize the president to enter into a national gas supply contract with the lowest responsible, and responsive bidder effective May 1st, 2022, and not to exceed 36 months.
Motion?
Dwight?
Second.
Brenda? Have discussion?
Yeah, that's not on my agenda. Is it?
G?
No, I don't have any G. I guess I printed out the agenda before G was added. Could we maybe hear a little bit about what it is?
Sure. So every few years, we go out to bid on our natural gas supply. As you can imagine, it's a bit of an up and down market, and so to avoid some of the risk, we like to lock in at a set rate. It has saved the college substantial money in past by rather than just paying whatever the daily market rate is. What we're asking for tonight is for the board to approve Dr. Traska to be able to enter into that agreement. We will open bids on April 20th, and the contract has to be signed that day, just given the daily fluctuation of prices. So what we're asking is the board to authorize Dr. Traska to enter into whatever is the lowest bid on that day on April 20th when we receive them.
Thank you.
Yep. Any more discussion? Okay, call for the vote. Sue?
Barker,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
McCain,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Rest,
Yes.
Hanfelder,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, motion carried. Now we'll move on to informational items. Dr. Traska, is there anything you'd like to highlight in the informational items?
Sure. So I've got some team members that'll come up and be able to address. I know particularly for item E, Brett is going to be sort of digging into that a little bit, just sort of talking a bit about what we've been doing this last couple of months. Dobby Heron, who's here, is going to talk a bit about East St. Louis in the context of the Revolution Workshop concept that we're planning to introduce at East St. Louis, and Tony is here as well to talk a bit about the partnerships that have been involved there. And then we do have a faculty association update. I believe Peter Hussey is going to be part of that. And then I know Trustee Rust has some updates he'd like to provide. And then Maya Lawrence will provide an update on the diversity, equity, and inclusion plan activities. So those are the ones that have a little bit more, I mean, there's some formal sort of presentations. They're not very long, but just to provide the board with a little bit more perspective as to what's happening in those areas. The rest of them, if there are any other questions for each respective item, Brett's got A through E. So if there's anything around A through D, please let him know. Otherwise, I think he would be more than happy to sort of dive into E. So, thanks.
Sure. Great, thanks. Just a quick update on the strategic planning process. You may recall that in June, the June board meeting in 2021, you approved the college's strategic plan. It had 4 key elements or key directions. Expecting enrollment, retention improvement, invest in program curriculum development, build in transparent and inclusive culture, and broaden community and educational collaborations. You know, a lot of water has passed under the bridge since that approval in June, and we've gotten a lot of COVID regulations and executive orders that we've had to deal with. We've hired multiple new administrators, and we also, of course, had experienced a cyber event in that time as well. So we probably haven't made it as far along in our planning as we would have liked to have been at this point in the juncture. So Dr. Traska asked that I provide a brief update on this, on where we are right now. So with the hiring of new administrators, Dr. Traska modified some of the KD team co-leads. So KD1 will now be led by Dr. Katie Adams and Dr. Lori Artis. KD2 will now be led by Dr. Jill Lane and Dr. Michael Sunblad. KD3 will continue to be led by Dr. Sue Zawinski and Debbie Witskin. KD4 will be led by Dr. Dobby Harian and Dr. Val Harris. These new KD co-leaders have already begun updating and revising each of their respective key directions. And as these aspirations take shape underneath, or goals take shape underneath each one of these key directions, we plan on building new aspiration mover teams to work on this important work under each of these particular key directions. We intend to finalize all of these aspiration teams in the next few weeks with our intent to offer an opportunity for everyone on campus to participate if they so choose in these aspiration mover teams. And so we'll hope to have that up before the end of the year so that everyone gets a fair shot at volunteering if they would like to. So that next place puts us to a formal relaunch of the strategic plan on July 1st of 2022. And that actually extends our dates out from July 1 of 2022 through June 30th of 2025. And ironically, that puts us right in line with what our old strategic plan had been, the logical conclusion of our old strategic plan and this transition into our new strategic plan. So it really makes reporting out to Higher Learning Commission consistent with what we've been doing. So that's a brief update of what we've got going on. Happy to answer any questions about the strategic plan in general.
Thank you, Brett. And again, we'll bring this to the board. Although the board has approved the strategic plan last year, we'd like to sort of reintroduce it to the board and give you the opportunity to sort of re-endorse it for the next 3 years. So appreciate everyone's effort. Thank you very much.
Sure.
And I just wanted to take a few minutes this evening to talk about the mock disaster drill that we've done. I think everyone here has met Chris Iccra before. He is our emergency operations consultant and has done some of these drills for us in the past. I just asked him to speak a little bit about it, about this year's plan, and I want to recognize and give Donna Eaglehoff a chance to say a few words as well, because through her leadership this year as the nursing learning specialist, I'm going to make sure I get her title right, we were able to invite our students to take part in it, and I think it was a pretty awesome opportunity for them as well to get some hands-on emergency operations training. So Chris, I will hand the microphone over to you and Donna.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me back again. Again, as you guys know, I'm Chris Iccra. I've been working for the Village of Godfrey for going on 9 years as their public safety director. And I've been working for the college as their emergency management consultant going on 5 years, I guess coming up on 6 if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to I know you all have the information item that has a lot of the details of and the summary of what was going on at the exercise and a lot of the ins and outs, inner workings. But what I was going to do is just briefly summarize with you what we simulated last time was a general tornado incident. We call it a single resource incident because it involved the college resources and a local first responding agencies to come and mitigate it. I hope we don't have to deal with it again tomorrow with this weather that's coming in. But what we did this time, as I promised, is we did a more complex multi-agency, multi-level response that basically not only measured the initial response with the internal resources of the incident management team on campus, but we also included local fire and rescue, and then that required a county response. So what the simulation in general was we pretended that a substitute delivery driver not familiar with the Hathaway Cultural Center wound up bringing in a 30-gallon container of muriatic acid and some large 5-gallon buckets of chlorine tablets and accidentally dumped them down the stairwells into the basement of the Cultural Center. We had it staged really well. We even had the colored water on the floor to simulate the acid, and I had 6-inch chlorine simulated foam discs that looked just like it. We threw them a curveball, so when security heard the fire alarm go off and responded to this area, they actually got sick and had to step back so that the successive planning that we did was able to take action, and we did that. We had the smoke machine going, and we actually had it place vaped up pretty good with the simulation. We wound up eventually calling in county hazmat. They wound up setting up a decon area. And then what I did to include Donna's component that she had requested was essentially, I created a strike team, which is a NIMS ICS term of similar resources. And we had half the nursing students pose as patients in this mass casualty exercise, and the other half posed as triage strike team members. I'm going to let Donna kind of explain a little bit the inner workings of that, but I can say from the first response and multi-agency efforts that it was flawless. Everything worked the way it was supposed to, and even with some of the curveballs we had, which we designed into it, and there were a couple curveballs that we didn't expect, everything worked out well in the end. We wound up having a good, successful exercise. We were done by noon, and we're able to do our after-action debriefing right here in the room. And so, again, I thank the college for their interest in being prepared for the community. I know Mayor McCormick, he's out of town tonight, but he asked me to also express his gratitude to the board and the college. how you guys continuously keep stepping up for our community. You did it for us through COVID, with the testing stations, with the vaccines, whenever you assist us with tornado siren activations. You guys are a key stakeholder to our community, and we really, really appreciate all that you do for us. And I'm happy to work with you guys as long as we go. So if Donna, would you like to come up?
Good evening. So tonight, I'd like to discuss a little bit of the aspects, and this was a multidisciplinary mock disaster drill. And it has been a long developing endeavor that combines students from differing programs into a learning environment, not only to hone in their specific skills, but to engage in teamwork and professionalism where simulation provided that avenue for them. So during the initial planning stage, I enlisted the help of Greg Cash, and we did some research, and neither one of us could find anything at a community college in the publishing sector that has done anything at this scale. What we found was some universities, and most of those were interprofessional. So what that means, it was like nursing with pharmacy and pre-med doing some simulation, but not a multidisciplinary. I want to ensure that recognition and credit is given to our Lewis and Clark Community College Library Resource and Research team. I had assistance from Brad White. In my research, I found a tool, and I did get permission to use that tool. So in the process, I was able to obtain an IRB and was approved for that. So Greg and I, moving forward, will be looking at all the data this summer and writing this up and hopefully get published with this simulation. So I don't want to take away from the nursing and all the dedication and hard work the faculty and the nursing students had, and they had a lot of spotlight. But I really want to put the spotlight on other students. Again, this was multidisciplinary, and we had Laura Enlow and Jan Donna. They were mentors of two students of Louise Jett's communications program, Lindsay Dean and Britton Davis. So in talking to them, they were excited to be part of the simulation and the enrichment that it brought to their learning. We also want to give gratitude to our student, Millie Carter. She is part of the student activities. She is truly a student ambassador for our student body. She was actually the delivery driver and did an amazing job. So all of these students deserve to also be in the spotlight because they dedicated their time and efforts to this. There were many individuals and organizations that made this a success, but a special thank you does need to go out to Chief and Assistant Chief of the Godfrey Fire Department. They came in a month early before the simulation, and they did triage training with our nursing students prior to the program. And in the data gathered during the simulation, the nursing students triaged their victims with 100% accuracy. I would be amiss if I began thinking individually those involved in this project for fear of missing someone. However, I do need to extend my gratitude to the Lewis and Clark Community College Emergency Response Team and my personal appreciation to Chris Iccra for seeing my vision and utilizing his expertise and connections on making it happen. The commitment, effort, and dedication that everyone from the college and community bestowed on this project did not go unnoticed, and words cannot express thank you enough. So finally, a post-planning survey was sent out to the planning committee, and the feedback will be taken into consideration and hope that maybe another event can be developed. So questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Again, I'd just like to congratulate everyone that was involved in that. I wasn't able to get out here, but I heard some very positive feedback from a number of people who were. And it's the world we live in. We have to be prepared for these kind of things. And I remember some words that one of my former coaches who caught me clowning around during a practice, which wasn't unusual. You play like you practice, and it's true, and you have to take these things serious. And if you're not ready, if you don't practice like you're going to play, you're not going to be ready. And I think they did a great job, so congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you for those comments. And thank you, everyone, again. Davi.
This has nothing to do with my presentation, but I told my 12-year-old son the same thing. He plays baseball for Metro High School, but his work ethic is horrible. He thinks he's going to show up and be an all-star, but he plays like he practices. I say, you got to, get it together. Anyway, your story resonated with me. I wanted to share it. It's been about maybe 3 years since I've talked about the work we've been doing in East St. Louis. So I wanted to first begin by thanking the board for continuing to support the work we've been doing, and for continuing to support our effort to try to better align our work in East St. Louis with the needs of the region and the main campus. I'll be honest, when we started 4 years ago, Dr. Carter and myself, we were as much fish out of water in East St. Louis, I think, as Lewis and Clark was in East St. Louis. And it presented a set of challenges that we didn't foresee, particularly in our area to build the collaborative partnerships, I think, to really help our workforce sector. Sure, we were doing really well, and we are doing really well in our general ed courses. We've got students enrolled in biology, math, English. We've got students enrolled for the summer. We're teaching coding to students in East St. Louis. I mean, we're doing impactful work in that area. But honestly, there's a lot more that we could and I really think we should be doing. It was about 3 or 4 months ago. Dr. Traska, Dr. Harris, Tony, and myself went to Chicago and met a gentleman by the name of Manny Rodriguez, who was doing phenomenal work in a program, a nonprofit organization called Revolution Workshop. Revolution Workshop is a 12-week free construction pre-apprenticeship program that works in underserved communities, and it provides not only hands-on construction training, but also the holistic soft skill piece that we know the employers are asking for. What's unique about this model, and one of the reasons why Tony is here, is that it addresses the challenges we've been faced with in East St. Louis, namely relationship building, collaboration, trust, the pipeline, connecting the dots. It doesn't make sense to have a participant come in and then get stuck at this access point because we don't have the relationship. This model and Manny's leadership and the success it's had for the past 4 years lead us to believe that if done regionally, both in East St. Louis and in Alton, this could really be make a big difference for Lewis and Clark's name in the area. We haven't seen any type of work like this across the region since I've been in the area. And speaking with Tony last week at our supply chain event in Collinsville, I think he said the same thing, the fact that Madison County is working with our county, the fact that East St. Louis people are working with Alton people. This is what's necessary, I think, if we really want to have an impact and broaden our reach in the community in East St. Louis and in Alton. And Tony, if you would, I'd love for you to come up and maybe talk about some of the partnerships and the work that you've seen come out of this over the past few months.
So I'm going to sing Manny's praises first. I've worked with Manny statewide on an apprenticeship committee. Manny's like the people that we look for to come to this area. Manny's a doer, not a talker. We have doers in this area, and it's getting noticed. That's why Manny wants to come to this area. Innovation breeds opportunity. This is an innovative program that we want to bring here. So one of the first things we did when Manny came down the first time was get the right people on the back end of the table. We had Donna Richter, who's the executive director of the Southern Illinois Builders Association. We had the folks from Alton Works, and we had Alex Gramato, who's the training director for the Carpenter's Apprenticeship Program. So this is a building trade pre-apprenticeship program. That's something we lack in this area is pre-apprenticeship programs. We're doing pretty well on the apprenticeship side. This program will train these individuals for the skills they need to enter into the construction field, which there is definitely a shortage of. Dobby talks about partnerships. It's all about partnerships. I know he hasn't seen them, but this area, the partnerships in the workforce education area are stronger than anywhere in the state. And that's why we're getting recognized. That's why people are coming to this area saying they want to be a part of it. This is just another opportunity for us to partner and have success and get people onto the next step in workforce development into well-paying construction jobs.
I'll close with this. We have a meeting coming up with ICCB, I think in May, early May, to kind of talk a little bit more about this. Again, the East St. Louis budget that we receive, we're looking to redistribute that funding to support this work happening at the regional level. And when we speak with ICCB next month, I guess we'll be able to give the board more insight into their decision on whether or not that's the direction they'd like to see us take. Any questions?
Thank you, Dobby. Appreciate it.
I do have a question. I'm not sure, I guess you would be the right person to address this to. We received an announcement about a new person on the team, Gary Cruz.
Yes.
Just wondering what his role is there.
So Gary Cruz is the ICCB director who will be in many ways, Gary is the neutral party. When Lewis and Clark was the educational provider for the area, what it did was create some internal conflict between our role, SWC's role, and SIUE's role. All of us are receiving funding from ICCB, but as Lewis and Clark, as the entity that oversees this, the competitiveness just couldn't be escaped. Gary's role as a neutral entity really helps oversee and connect all three entities together to do work for the campus. So his role really is campus oversight. My role is campus facilitator of Lewis and Clark's programs, working with ICCB's leadership. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Peter Hussey. I'm a professor in the music department and vice president of the Lewis and Clark Faculty Association, and I'll be presenting some faculty highlights for you guys, some good news of what's going on, and just really quickly, welcome aboard, Joel. It's great to see you there. We miss Sam, but welcome aboard. Highlights, they come in multimedia forms here. First of all, from Tracy Colburn from our nursing program. There you go, got it. From our nursing program, Tracy Colburn. The nursing program hosted its biannual career day on April 1st and had the largest turnout of vendors ever. There were 50 tables from different universities and healthcare employers from as far away as Chicago and Indiana. Several students walked away with jobs and/or plans to continue their BSN and MSN. The vendors praised the LCC campus and the nursing students tremendously. They all stated that this is their favorite event and can't wait to come back again in the fall for the next one. This is a huge opportunity for promotion in the nursing department. Elizabeth Grant, speech professor, sharing that Lewis and Clark had an exceptional humanities speech contest on March 30th with a dual credit winner, Tony Reynolds from CM, and the board student trustee, Sam Copeland, taking second. Also, Edwardsville hosted the first Wheels and Walk event on April 2nd, based on the efforts of the newly renamed Campus to Community Committee, where Dr. Kelly Obernieferman, history professor, represents Lewis and Clark. We look forward to growing this event that features the interconnectedness of Lewis and Clark and SIUE through the beautiful trail system. Last Friday, several Lewis and Clark faculty participated in and enjoyed the positive words of Dr. Lori Frank Hopkins, former Jerseyville superintendent and consultant in Be Just Me Consulting. This was a continuance of our Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning speaker series and was held in the Riverview room of NGREC and attracted faculty, community members, and dual credit instructors. Next up, from Louise Jett, a coordinator of graphic web design programs. First, a sad note I wanted to let everyone know, and she asked me to share that actually one of the students of their program passed away just last night. His name was Neil Hale, and she asked me to share that. He was actually a graduate of our technology program, one of our 30 and out students, and we lost him last night, and the whole program is trying to make sense of those feelings today. But on a positive side, The Bridge that Louise oversees, the Lewis and Clark student newspaper, The Bridge, won 18 awards at the Illinois Community College Journalism Association Annual Awards Ceremony held at EIU on April 8th. There were 8 schools with a total of 118 entries submitted for this year's contest, which covers the 2021 calendar year. The Bridge earned 5 first places, including Best Student Media, which means we earned the most points from our entries in our division. An informational item about all of these awards will be submitted to the board for the next month's meeting. Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and Excellence, Maya Lawrence, in partnership with our faculty member, Louise Jett, will be hosting the community listening series on the 1619 Project podcast. The first 2 meetings have already taken place, and all are welcome to join the next 3 sessions, which will take place on Zoom at 1 p.m. Friday, April 22nd, 29th, and May 6th. And even though we are focusing on the podcast, the 1619 Project also includes articles, poems, and images. It explores the legacy of the American slavery system beginning more than 400 years ago when the first slave ship landed on the shores of the United States. Radio broadcasting, under the direction of Mike Lemons, our faculty member, the Lewis and Clark Community College's radio broadcasting program hosted a program of 22 students from Civic Memorial High School on Wednesday, April 6th. The students produced 3 separate video podcasts and even had the opportunity to interview Lewis and Clark President Ken Traska during a Facebook live stream. Students also went on air on 89.9 and produced audio imaging pieces to be used on their station. Civic Memorial is one of the 3 high schools that have radio stations affiliated with WLCA. The Honors College program, under the direction of sociology professor Jennifer Klein, just took our students on our staycation. This is an annual event, although not quite annual because of COVID, but where we take our Honors College students over to St. Louis and we spend several days holed up in some lovely place, usually an Airbnb of some sort. And it's an opportunity for our students to bond as a cohort and to experience St. Louis. And this year we had the opportunity to go to a newly adjudicated art exhibit at one of the St. Louis art galleries, where one of my former students was actually presenting work. We went to the Sheldon Concert Hall for a concert by internationally acclaimed jazz artist Janet Evra. We visited the Sheldon Art Galleries. We had a picnic in Tower Grove Park, the historic place that it is. We visited the City Museum. We visited the historic St. Louis Zoo, and as well as had a pretty magical game night back at the abode before we were all done. So quite an experience for our students in the Honors College. We also, the Honors College faculty, which includes Professor Jennifer Klein, our ICCTA Adjunct Faculty Award nominee, Brad Wynn, and myself will be presenting this next coming week at the 15th Annual International Conference on the Inclusive Museum. This year's theme being Rethinking the Museum, and it is based on the concept of riverscapes and river stories, which was the course that our own adjunct faculty member Brad Wynn created. So we're very excited to share this with literally the world at this conference. And then lastly, for Honors College, as an academic program under Vice President Jill Lane, who with HC Coordinator Jen Klein started the Honors College in 2017, we have some pretty exciting data news. I'm not much of a data person, but this stuff's good. We wanted to see how we were serving our students in terms of Honors College. What does that mean? How does that make it special, different, et cetera for them? And so we asked our data folks if they could pull out the Honors College students and do a comparison of typical Lewis and Clark student and Honors College student. A typical Lewis and Clark student GPA, 2.7. A typical Honors College student GPA, 3.5. On a Lewis and Clark student retention rate, 60%. Honors College student, 93% retention rate. Completion rate, Lewis and Clark student, 51%. Honors College student, 88%. And 4-year transfer rate, Lewis and Clark student, 14%. Honors College student, 96%. And 100% of Honors College students who have completed their degrees at Lewis and Clark have subsequently transferred to a four-year institution, plus 2 more Honors College students who did not complete their degrees at Lewis and Clark and yet still went on to a four-year program. So some exciting news in terms of what Honors College is doing for our students. And lastly, our music department, coordinated by Louis Michael. We have 2 remarkable events coming up that are thanks to our full-time faculty member, Juliet Jackson. Tomorrow and Thursday, we will have back-to-back music events featuring Nathan Hunt, who is the lead singer of the band Shaman's Harvest. If you haven't heard, the band has 7 albums to date, including Billboard chart status. Their songs have been used in WrestleMania and by various members of the WWE, from Drew McIntyre to The Undertaker, and have been used in Hollywood motion pictures, including No One Lives and Legendary, starring John Cena, no less. Bringing this internationally recognized singer and songwriter to our campus was no small feat. How is this possible? It is through the amazing skills and personal attention that Juliet Jackson provides to her students. And yes, Nathan Hunt, international recording artist that he is one of Juliet's students. And Juliet tells the story far better than I ever could. Quote, I initially began working with him for vocal abuse issues. He was spitting up blood after performances. We did vocal rehab work, implementing different vocal techniques, development and stamina work, and he recovered. Subsequently, we have retooled his technique 2 times due to bouts with cancer, 1 head and 1 neck, with a recurrence in the lung a few years later. He has continued to work and record through all of this. In fact, the album Smoking Hearts and Broken Guns was recorded while he was undergoing radiation for the head and neck cancer. We had to do a lot of management of mucosal damage from radiation, as well as technique to accommodate what was physically happening due to the treatment. And we are now currently working to get him in tour shape for post-pandemic. Yes, that singer that I'm talking about will be on our campus for the next 2 days, working with our students in a clinic and also performing in our very own Hathaway Hall. And performing along with him will be our own Lewis and Clark Choir, our own Lewis and Clark Percussion Ensemble, as well as myself and Music Department Coordinator, Louis Michael. And so once again, kudos to Juliet Jackson for making this all possible. That is what I have. I know that Deb Whitson has some more things to share, but is not here and is, I believe, on Zoom. So if I could ask for that.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah.
Hello, am I pulled up? Yes, okay. Everyone can hear me okay? Thank you for this opportunity to share tonight. And before I share my prepared comments, I just, as I was listening to the other parts of the board meeting, I was thinking about like growth versus fixed mindset, which is something that, kids are taught through school. I know we teach it in our program, and how important it is as we're kind of moving through all these changes at Lewis and Clark to really have a mindset of growth where we embrace opportunities and take risks and are not afraid of failure, and knowing some of the things that we do might, be a little risky, but it's worth the chance to do something greater. So I just encourage, again, everyone, if you're not familiar with fixed and growth mindset, to look at that and just understand how that can shape our future by having an open mind and being, willing to do what we need to do and work together as a team to move forward. So some of my updates that I'm sharing tonight are on behalf of the EC and then our subcommittee of institutional transparency. So some of the things that have happened over the last month, just to share, several team members, Lewis and Clark team members actually, and then other community members and faculty members joined a community event on Zoom titled Uncomfortable Conversations. And this was led by Al Womack, who directs the Boys and Girls Club of Alton. Faculty were able to share with members of the community about things that were happening and our concerns and the kind of the dysfunction, unfortunately, that's happening with our board. There were several individuals from several local community members there, which live in the districts that we serve. Some of them have attended Lewis and Clark. They ask questions, they voice their worries too about what is happening at Lewis and Clark, and, really vowed to help us to make Lewis and Clark better and whatever that may entail. So we're going to continue our work with them, and we will continue to share with community members and anyone who, is willing to listen about where we want the future of Lewis and Clark to be and where we sometimes feel like it's heading, which is not always in the positive direction. Next, based on the recommendation of the Illinois Community College Board, a formal complaint was made this past month to the Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights. The ICCB also recommended that we do what we have already done, which was file a complaint with the Higher Learning Commission based on the concerns that we've shared. Other things that I want to point out is there's been a lot of talk tonight about spending, which I agree is all about investing and making Lewis and Clark better. But I really want to put on your radar just the amount of money that is probably being spent in attorney fees by our Board of Trustees. So we're still gathering information on this, but our attorney is being consulted on all kinds of things on a regular basis. And it's concerning that, money is being, questioned, spending's being questioned to invest in the future of Lewis and Clark, but there is no question about, the board spending money on things that they think, are important to them. So I want to just kind of bring that out. There are many months where legal fees have totaled $15,000 or even $20,000, but opportunities to scrutinize spending on the personnel, faculty, improvements to the college continue to happen. So again, maybe that should be audited to see where we compare with state spending on legal fees for other schools. Information that was shared through FOIA requests include board policies that have been changed since 2019. And when we reviewed the policies, there were 9 times that the word college president was lined out and the word chairman was replaced to take the power again away from the college and put it on the, to give the board this power to really decide day-to-day operations, which is not the suggested role of the board. So I just want to bring that to everyone's attention. So again, our call to action, as we stated last month, we're going to reiterate these same things, but we are still concerned about the future of Lewis and Clark. We are concerned about the fixed mindset that I've heard tonight versus the growth mindset that we want to have. So our only hope is that members of the board recognize the seriousness and take action in the best interest of the college and do something on behalf of the administration, staff, and the employees, students, taxpayers, the community, all the individuals that we serve and who rely on us for services. So in order to promote transparency between the public and the board, the Faculty Association again is calling on the board to develop a policy for recall and censure. Such a policy would communicate to the community and to stakeholders at the college that the board is serious in its mission to invest in Lewis and Clark and to seek more cooperative solutions that enhance student learning and faculty teaching. These policies by the board can be adopted, changed, amended at any regular or special board meeting. The Board of Trustees, as needed, can make these changes. So we're again encouraging that to happen and almost demanding it. We want to see some change. As far as we know, there are no changes that have been made, and so we'll have to continue to, share our concerns. We also propose that the board develop a policy, again, for censure that would allow the board by secret ballot to censure members and remove them from officer positions for violating public values of Lewis and Clark. We also propose a procedure for recall and resignation to be instituted, where board members can be either removed from their position as an officer or removed permanently from the board if that's what's determined. These votes should be by secret ballot, and the accused members should recuse themselves from the vote. Additionally, we propose streamlined communication, where all communication with Lewis and Clark leadership is funneled through the college president, Dr. Traska, by the chairman of the board. This would stop individuals of the board, namely, you probably know who you are, but from continuing to send demanding emails that are taking up time and energy to focus on what we need to be focusing on at Lewis and Clark from our leaders. So we need some change to happen to show that you're invested. So by channeling information and requests directly through the president can clarify questions, monitor the accuracy of the reports, and be the lead communicator for all of us. So we believe that all positions at Lewis and Clark are those of public trust, and that our trust is in the education and growth of Lewis and Clark as a community college serving a diverse community. We call on our board to answer that mission and its actions. to promote education, to hold each other accountable through revised board policies, and to act as trustees of the college, not as bosses or overseers who interfere with the daily activities and prevent the comprehensive growth, student engagement of both faculty and of student success. So I thank you for your time and your invested care and interest in the mission and the values of Lewis and Clark. I hope that we can move forward together and make a change for the better, but do know by not doing any action, you're still acting. So we challenge you to stand up for what's right and do the right thing. Thank you for your time.
Kevin, I think you're up.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a little report on my attendance at the ICCTA meeting in East Peoria in early March. Just a few high points. It was apparent and reported to us that the state of Illinois is definitely increasing its investment in community colleges. Just as an example, there'll be 122, or it's proposed at least, $122 million increase in the monetary award program funding and expanding the eligibility to short-term credential programs, which I think is even more important than the dollar amount that involved. Maybe I don't understand what short-term credential is, but I think it's something that we're focusing on here, aren't we?
Yes, exactly what we're focusing on, micro-credentialing, and it's really grounded in competency-based education.
Good.
And I'm proud to say we're leading the state with that. I mean, we're now a mentor college, and we're continuing to look at additional programs. So all factors into the enrollment piece. It takes time, but we're building some really good things, so.
Great. Okay, the next thing that I want to touch on is we had several very good presentations. One of them was a community college financial literacy presentation that was done by I think it was the CFO, Chief Financial Officer up at Blackhawk, I think it was. Anyway, it would be, and I distributed that to all the board members. Maybe they might get something out of it, I think, although it would be especially good for orientation of new board members. And I did forward out to all the board. The next item would be, there was a very enlightening report from the Lincoln Land Community College on their budgeting process. And it seems like their board is very much involved in the budgeting process, especially at the front end, which kind of makes sense to me, setting some guidelines, which I also forwarded that to the board for their benefit. It was interesting that their presenter, I think was supposed to be their chief financial officer there, I believe had an illness or something and couldn't attend. But their president, Dr. Charlotte Warren, stepped right in and really did a really good job of presenting that budget process. And we also had a PowerPoint presentation on the community college funding formula. It was a very I'm sure Mary would appreciate this. It's very involved in the numbers and that, and how they come up with how much they're going to subsidize us with. It was a little hard to keep up with, but it was from an overall standpoint or a high level. It was important to at least see how it all comes together at the state level. Our luncheon speaker was the mayor of Peoria, not East Peoria, but the mayor of Peoria, Dr. Rita Ali. And she was quite a powerful presenter, and her presentation was kind of the story of her life and how she pulled herself up by her bootstraps. It was really pretty powerful. Before being elected mayor, she was the vice president of workforce and diversity at Illinois Central Community College, which is the college up there in the Peoria area. But Maya, if you're here, if you're listening, don't get any ideas. We want to keep you here. And the last thing is the ICCTA board, which is really all of the people that go to the meeting. the Board of Representatives, we adopted an anti-racism statement for the ICCTA. And the ICCTA is encouraging all community colleges to have an anti-racism statement. We do have like a diversity statement, but we really don't, here at Lewis and Clark, we don't really have an anti-racism statement. It's a little different. And I meant to bring copies for all the board members. I'll get those copies to you. It's just a one-page thing, and it kind of says what you would expect it to say, but it's pretty good. But we need to craft our own. That's our own Lewis and Clark's anti-racism statement. And Maya, maybe you can help with that. That's all I have to say. Any questions?
Thank you, Kevin. Jeff, yeah.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Coles, Director of Academic Operations here on campus. And I know I'm here to talk about about space utilization on campus. And so I know the board was provided about a month or so ago with some space utilization reports. And we have those we can pull up on the screen. I don't know if you have those in front of you tonight. But really here just to discuss those and answer any questions and kind of walk through those reports with any questions or discussions you might have. So the first report that we see up there, and I'll just kind of jump in or ask questions or kind of flow through this as you see fit. But the two reports that I'm going to pull up here are both from the 2021 fall semester, and they include utilization on the Godfrey campus only. And this summary report is broken down by room type for each building on campus. And I don't know if you want me to go through the different room types just to give you kind of a general rundown. But our general classrooms on campus would be any lecture style classrooms that we hold at our most general education lecture courses. There's 37 of those rooms on campus. And you can see as we go down the report just the different breakouts. But the classroom special, there's a few of those on campus, and those are specific to particular programs. You see there's 3 in the Phobes building. We only hold the College for Life program courses in those classrooms, and so we don't run anything else in those rooms. The computer labs general, again, kind of what it sounds like, but they're just general computer labs. No specific or special software in those, just again, mostly general education courses. The computer lab special are computer labs that have been designed for specific programs. A lot of those will be like nursing, computer graphics, architecture and design, information technology, networking, to name a few of those. They usually have specific software requirements or specific software or equipment needs in those rooms, and really are the only programs that can use those computer labs. Same thing with labs special. You see there's 37 of those on campus, and those special labs are designated for specific programs or courses, mainly health sciences like nursing, occupational therapy, or dental. You think of those labs, or a biology or chemistry lab where we really can't run any other classes in those rooms but those specific courses. And then the final category there is studio special, and that would include the photography studio, dance studio, exercise science, fitness center, things like that. So that kind of gives you an overall breakdown of the rooms that are on campus. And as you are all aware, the 3rd and 4th floors of Baldwin and Caldwell Halls over the fall, we took those out, and we had to relocate quite a few course sections on campus to other places on campus. And we also had to, I'll say, force many sections to go virtual or online fully, just because we don't have the space to accommodate all of those, especially during the prime time hours. And that's what one of these other reports that you're going to see will kind of show. With the closure of the main complex, I'm sure you remember, but we lost 32 total rooms. 27 of those were regular classrooms, and 5 of those were computer labs, which was a total of 760 classroom seats. So 660 classrooms, seats in classrooms, and 100 computer lab seats that we lost to the closure of those rooms in the main complex. So this first report, like I said, I think Mr. Rust had asked for this a while back, and I think you'd seen this report somewhere else and asked for it. And this is the space utilization for sections and events by building and room with seat fill report. So really this report just shows you an average of weekly room hours for all activities, which would be events, classes, everything that's held in our classrooms by building, highlighting room hour utilization. So as you kind of look through that, it's kind of self-explanatory, and I can kind of go through any of those numbers or columns and explain any of those numbers that you like. But one of the things I'd like to point out is that while it does show enrollment numbers on this report, the numbers are negatively skewed in a lot of cases because they're impacted by things like meetings, events, university partner classes, anything that we run on campus that's not a regular class section. Those have 0 enrollments to them. So they do take up hours in a classroom, but they don't show up as enrollments in a course section. So those enrollment numbers are, again, a little skewed to the negative side just because they don't have any enrollments in those. Also, as I mentioned, the main complex, and due to COVID concerns as well, we did force many sections to go virtual and online back in the fall, which, of course, those rooms don't show up in this, or I'm sorry, those sections don't show up in this report as hours in a classroom. So, and again, this is for 21 fall, and it's only for the Godfrey campus. But again, I don't know if there's any questions. I think this was provided to you prior, so you've probably looked at it. So I'm happy to answer anything on this one. The second report, just right after that one that I provided as well, is virtually the same report, but this shows kind of the prime time usage, and this is where we really have our problems, is during the prime time hours of 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And so that's where our bottlenecks are, and that's what this second report shows. It kind of shows those bottlenecks and just shows the amount of our classrooms that are utilized during that, during those prime time hours. So again, I don't know if there's any questions related to that. Sure.
So what's your conclusion?
Well, that's the...
And also one other point is that fall enrollment was probably relatively low compared to.
Sure, and so that, again, that's with lower enrollment than what we've typically had over the last few years. So that's why we were able to, 37 rooms is a lot, right? And so we were able to absorb most of that. Again, during some of those prime hours, 9:30 classes, 11 a.m. classes, a lot of those did have to go virtual, and they did have to go online because we just don't have the space on the campus to relocate them. We even went around, after the issue back in August, the first week of classes, walked around campus and just tried to find any space that maybe wasn't being utilized as a classroom that was larger than a closet that we could hold classes in, right? And so we discovered a couple of those, but again, what's tough is a lot of these specialty labs, they have nursing equipment in them, so we can't put other students in them. And so you see that in those utilization reports. Those aren't used all day, every day, because, there's only 2 or 3 classes that maybe can run in there. So, a lot of the health science classes and things like that. So the last screenshot that I had, it's not really a report, but just kind of a screenshot, just gives you a little snapshot of, it's the math and science building, the math and science buildings, and you can see how our courses are laid out on this scheduling grid, kind of like a Tetris game, and putting all those puzzle pieces together. And, the tough part in my world is that we have, most of our general education courses are, of course, 3 credit hours, but we have a lot of 4 and 5 and 6 credit hour, contact hour courses that have different meeting times, and so those don't, those overlap, and so that's sometimes hard to build those schedules. Do you have a question? Oh, I'm sorry, okay. And so it's, it's quite a challenge to make everything fit in the classrooms that we have available to us. Another thing is, things like nursing on-campus clinicals. I know there's one nursing course that for the first 5 weeks of the semester from 6 a.m. to 1 p.m., Monday through Thursday, or Monday through Friday, they need a dedicated classroom. Well, that cancels that out for the entire 16 weeks, right? And so we're able to schedule other ad hoc things through the semester, but there are many of those ad hoc events that I can list that, take things out of some of those. So a lot of times I get questions, well, the nursing classroom, those computer labs, I can walk through there and I see that they're open. Well, they were used for 5 weeks constantly, and now we're kind of bits and pieces putting things in like you see here, So you can see that, again, in the math and science complex, this is just a snapshot of a Tuesday. I think this was the day of the last board meeting, and so it's virtually the same now. It's on a Tuesday. And so as you look at that, there are no classrooms available in that 9:30 to 11 a.m. hour, you know. So if we do have things like a projector breaks down or an instructor computer breaks down or some kind of equipment needs, I get a lot of requests for, let's say, an English class or a speech class that might need a computer lab to work on a project or to do some research. We don't have the ability to offer that right now, especially during these prime times. Later in the afternoon, sure, but there's things that pop up on campus that, again, right now, in those prime times, there are times that we do not have an extra computer lab or regular classroom on campus, so.
Do you have a computer program that you do that on, or is that all in your brain? Or do you sleep?
So we have, what you're seeing here is that is a computer program that our colleague system feeds into. It's got a very limited, it's mostly used for campus events. It's got a very limited academic piece that we use. There's a much larger academic piece to it that we've never purchased. And so again, a lot of this is spreadsheets and scheduling and figuring those things out and making those things fit. There are some tools in it that can help optimize things, but then it's in, building rules around, try to do our best to not stick an instructor in the math building at one time and then 10 minutes later, 15 minutes later have to be across campus. So trying to look at all those things and make sure that instructors are in the right rooms that they need to be in, that they're not switching rooms, running around campus. And so, it takes a lot of time to fit those pieces together, so.
Jeff, one question on that. So I know there's discussion around a schedule optimization component to this, and can you just maybe talk us through that a little bit in terms of sort of why that may be of value? I mean, I know, but I'm sort of asking it in the context
Yeah, and so
of,
obviously when you talk about schedule optimization would be fitting those pieces as tightly and nicely as possible into classrooms. And when I sit back and kind of do that on my own, it comes out pretty close to the same as the model runs, but I'm able to accommodate more of, again, instructor preferences, or I know what, there's a document camera in this room, we really need to have this math class in this room. There's rules that you can build into it. It's very time consuming to build all those specific rules. But what would be even more important than an optimizer like that would be really beneficial to us, and that we've had, since I've been here, questions about is what classes we need to run and when we need to run them and what the optimum times are. And there are software programs out there that look at our student records and can look at our, look into the students and say, we have this many students in this program. They still need, according to their degree audit, they need these courses. If we can run this course and then this course and this course back to back to back at these times, we know we can fill them because we have the students that took the prerequisite courses last semester. And so there's a lot of those predictive analytics that are nearly impossible to do, in spreadsheets. I mean, that's what I spend a lot of my job doing is spreadsheets and trying to figure all this out. But there's just, with nearly 1,000 sections just on this campus alone, trying to make all of those pieces fit, that would be a huge bang for our buck there as far as, because I know that there's, we have the scheduling time blocks, like I said, where students can get a pretty good schedule and not have large gaps in between depending on what programs they're in and things like that. But this would really give us a chance to get the classes that students need at the times they need them or at the campuses they need. And, it just has that predictive analytics feature to it, which we just can't really do manually right now.
and that's one of the additional investments that we're considering, so could really help us. So thanks,
Absolutely.
Jeff.
Will any of this, any of your research or these, this study, will that be at all useful in informing our architects for our big project on how much space is needed and what type of space and those type of questions?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the big thing is I know Dr. Trask has talked about this, but just kind of reimagining what a classroom looks like or what needs to be in a classroom, how many computer labs we need on campus, and just to kind of re-envision what those classrooms look like. A lot of the classrooms in the main campus were tough because they may only hold 16 students, so we'd have to cap a section. Maybe we could fill more students in it, but we didn't, it's in a classroom of 16 students, so we'd have to cap it off. So there's things like that between computer software programs and between working with architects that we could kind of, smooth those kind of areas out. And yeah, I think it could absolutely help with architects of what we need in the main complex.
It's a really important point. So a lot of times when you have a class that has a higher capacity, but a space that doesn't accommodate that capacity, the class size is limited. And sometimes those students who are not able to enroll perhaps are displaced, and that's another vulnerability within this whole process. So these are all part of the moving pieces that we're working through. So appreciate your efforts, Jeff. Really
Sure.
nice. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
You also got to consider the fact that a lot of those classrooms were dorms. There were dorm rooms made into classrooms.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of them, like I say, when I say closets, I mean, some of those are not much bigger than closets.
Yeah,
and they have pipes running through them, and we know all the other stories of what's going on in some of those rooms.
I went to Lewis and Clark when they were making those dorms into classrooms.
All right. Thank you.
We appreciate your efforts. Thank you very much.
There was an item on the Open Meetings Act. I know Trustee Rust, you had a question on that, but I talked to Sue, and I know the training module is now being re-released, and as you may recall from the cyber incident, a lot of that whole site went down. So I know Sue is working on resetting passwords and credentials for board members, so you'll soon be able to re-access that. Not sure if that's the update you wanted, but I will kind of pass it over to you, Trustee Rust, and if you have any other questions or thoughts on that, let me know.
No, I'm lost. I'm not sure. Are you talking about the Google and Microsoft?
The Open Meetings Act training you had
Oh,
sent
Open
an
Meetings
email-
Act training.
Yeah.
Oh, that's yeah. I talked to Dennis Weedman about that a bit, and then he's provided us some information. I believe we're okay on that for right now, anyway. You guys got some information from Dennis, right? Okay. Yeah, we're good.
Thanks. And the next one, so Maya, if you come on up, and then we'll end the informational items with Jill providing some new educational program updates. So Maya and then Jill.
Hi, so just some updates within diversity, equity, and inclusive excellence. Can't hear. All right, sorry about that. Right now, I'm focusing on 6 different areas, 6 goals, so to speak. One is to eliminate student equity gaps, implement shared definitions of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and also anti-racism. Decrease DEI-related communication, increase DEI-related communication, training, and professional development. Strengthen recruitment, hiring, onboarding, and retention practices, which will help to address and advance DEI at Lewis and Clark. Develop, implement, and assess culturally responsive educational practices to support student services and student success, and to build capacity for all employees to prioritize, prioritize DEI work in their different areas. So some of the things that have been done to address those 6 things, currently I'm working with Dr. Lane and some of her people to look at how we can get DEI more into curriculum. We have discussed possibly having an orientation aspect in addition to a section in the new student experience course that some of our students take when they first start. And then also possibly having a course objective or 2 that refers to DEI work so that each course will have one component that is doing that work, and that can look different in every course. It could be something as regular as a presentation that I would do, or something more in-depth like a college programming or things like that. So it just kind of depends on what we deem is going to be best when we get to that point of the planning. Also, I am working with the multicultural recruitment, retention, and engagement team. What we do is to do those 3 things with students of color. We are in the process of developing a student to faculty/staff mentor program, ideally to help our students of color have more of a sense of belonging here on campus and make sure that they have someone that they are comfortable going to when they need specific guidance, and just kind of learning Lewis and Clark and the Lewis and Clark campus and culture and things like that. Also, we're working to provide more outreach and student activities for our students of color, specifically working to revise our Black Student Union more so that, you know, that has more of a presence and that those students can kind of see programming and things on campus that they feel is important to their success. I'm working with human resources. We're looking at how we're interviewing for positions here at Lewis and Clark, whether that's through our questioning, our onboarding process, and how we can kind of make that better and more inclusive and equitable across the board. This summer, I've been working with our TRIO program, so this summer we're planning to do some programming at the Manny Jackson Center. It would probably be a speaker series, and also trying to better integrate our TRIO students within the Lewis and Clark community so that Lewis and Clark is more of an option for those students. The TRIO program is by no means a direct route to Lewis and Clark, but it is an opportunity for us to help those students to be more successful when they're starting college, and then helping them with their transfer to a four-year institution. Some of the stuff that has been done specifically with student programming was the Support for Ukraine rally, where our students got to kind of have that platform to speak about what's going on in Ukraine, and having that space, a safe space to voice their concerns and how we can better support Ukraine. And then there's also the Martin Luther King Jr. program, where we invited a speaker to talk about self-awareness as far as how we can be more self-aware and within our students and just within staff. So that was a really good program. It was all virtual this year. Hopefully next year it will be able to be face-to-face, and we can get just more interaction that way. And then within the community, I have reached out to the Riverbend Growth Association. I did a presentation for their whole association. I guess I say our, since we're a part of it, just on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how it's important specifically for small businesses and how it can help with success when you have that focus. And that presentation went really well. I had really good feedback from that. And then also working with the Boys and Girls Club, Mr. Al Womack, to see how we can have better community outreach with the students and the families that use the Boys and Girls Club, to see Lewis and Clark as more of a resource within the community to help those families, help those students, and, you know, long-term goals to get those students here. You heard earlier about the community conversations with the 1619 project. That is a 5-week series that we're doing here that is discussing the 1619 project. The 1619 project is it's discussing the whole history of our country. So it goes, you know, back before, you know, the Declaration of Independence, and we talk about slavery and how it affected the world that we are living in now, how our country is currently moving, you know, our economy, our arts, our education system, basically all of that. And we have these conversations every week. We have 3 more left. They're Friday at 1, and they're all on Zoom. So anyone is, you know, within the Lewis and Clark community is more than welcome to attend. We try to have a safe space to have very intense conversations. And the first 2 weeks have went very well. Although they're scheduled for an hour, both went over because people were just having great conversations and having the platform to say the things that they have been wanting to say in a space where it will be heard, and it gives us the ability to take those conversations and make them into actions. So it has been great so far, and I can only imagine that it's going to get better. And then also, I am working with Dr. Herron, which he spoke earlier. We're doing a Connect Summit for the Lewis and Clark community, the Alton community. And basically what that is it's going to be an invitation to a lot of the businesses within the area, and it's going to bring people here, and we're going to discuss diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how we can have more of that, not only just within the businesses, but to build connections that we can work together to make those things more priority in this area overall. So it is something, will we reach out to basically the communities that we serve. The goal is to try to get roughly 50 to maybe 100 people here, and it will be at the beginning of June. And it'll just be the first time that we do this. Ideally, this will be an annual conference where we can keep bringing in more people and having a speaker to kind of discuss the topics that are often overlooked, especially when you have staff that are, you know, underserved or underrepresented. We have to take the time to really look at that and bring that together and have those important conversations. So that's kind of the goal of our Connect Summit for this first year. And we will go from there. That is mostly it. Actually, Mr. Russ, you asked about the Diversity and Inclusion Climate Survey last time we spoke, and that is still happening. The goal is to get that out before the end of this year, so no later than, you know, early May. Right now, we have went over those same questions, and it's been revised. We are working to get it formatted, and then I'm trying to navigate what's the best way to get it out to the students. Usually you would say email, but students are not all that great at reading email. I'm not gonna just put that on students, people. And so we're trying to figure out the best route to get that information out to everyone so that we can have that survey done and then get that information from IT to compile that report, something similar to what we did in 2016. You all have any questions?
Thank you, Maya. Great work. And as everyone knows, this is, you know, Maya serving in a role that's new to our campus, and I just want to commend her for her leadership and excellent work in connecting the dots on campus and helping us advance. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Dr. Lane.
Hey there, I'm here to give you just a quick update on some new programs that are up and running, and then a couple that are in the works. So as you've heard before, we responded to the legislation that was going to require all pharmacy techs to have an education certificate in pharmacy tech, some kind of formal training. Dr. Sue Serwinski got right on it, and we put together a pharm tech curriculum, at least the skeletal bones of a curriculum. We had a very long, kind of drawn out search, but we were lucky enough in the end to find Casey Sackman, who is just an amazing pharm tech instructor and the program coordinator of that program. The HLC and the pharm tech accreditor says that you have to have at least one student in the program in order to pursue accreditation. So we had planned to start the program in the fall, but because of the prolonged search, it started in January. We had 3 students enroll, which is about what we would expect for a brand new program, and only 1 student actually stuck with it. In the long run, that was kind of a blessing in disguise, because Casey was not only fully fleshing out that curriculum, she was deep into pursuing the accreditation for that program. And the thing about new programs starting small, the beauty of it is they're essentially pilots, and we work out the bugs. And so that's what Casey is doing this semester. We're getting ready to work. We're working with Laura Inlow and her staff on a full-fledged second push to enroll students in pharmacy tech. The other thing that happened with the legislation is they ended up adjusting the date and pushing it back a year. I'm sure the pharmacy lobby may have had something to do with that, but so it wasn't as urgent for these folks to go back and get this certificate and this training. So we're really optimistic about that program being up and running. Similar thing with our diesel program. We've got 3 courses in place. We've got a fairly small number of students. But if you think back when we started truck driving, or some of our most recent programs, medical assisting, they start small. We work out the bugs, we get the right people in place, and then we do a full-blown push to get as many students as we can or as our capacity is enrolled in that program. So the same thing is kind of rolling out with diesel. Again, CBE and welding, I call that a new program because it's a totally new and innovative format. Travis has in the teens, Travis, you're here, was it 14, 18, 16?
About 15 right now.
Okay, so 15 students, and some of those were his existing students that decided to go the CBE route, but another whole group of those students were students that were new to us, and they were attracted by CBE. So as Dr. T said, Travis has spoken through ICCB to a statewide presentation. We have been invited by ICCB to be mentors to other colleges. We're still building the plane as we fly it, but we're ahead of the others, so we're the mentors. And that's where we want to be in this effort. We are the only people in the state, and really that I know of in the country, who are doing CBE and general education courses. And kudos to the 5 faculty that Travis recruited, who were very willing to step up and say, hey, I'll give this a try. And we've worked with Dr. Katie Adams and Dr. Sharice Jackson, on opening those to the general population in fall. So lots of fun stuff happening on the CBE front. I know Dr. Sundblad, Dr. Sawinski, and I are working on, okay, who's next? What program's next? And we've got a list of those. We've got a CBE working group who's talking about that, so we're moving forward. Dr. Sawinski is answering the call to high schools who are saying, please bring CNA to our community. We're offering CNA in Jerseyville through Jerseyville Hospital right now. And to offer CNA is not as easy as you might think. The facility has to be approved by the Department of Public Health. The instructor has to have all these credentials in order to teach it. So Dr. Sawinski has worked that miracle in Jerseyville and is now working it in Carlinville so that those students can have that CNA program right there. The beauty of CNA is we talk about pathways, we talk about entrance and exit ramps. You can go from CNA straight to work, then you can go from CNA to nursing, you can go from CNA to medical assisting or occupational therapy. So it's a great starting place for students. Last but not least, Dr. Sundblad's working with our program coordinator, Doug Schneiderheinz, in the business department on an ag management certificate that's really about ag business. It's not, fixing tractors or combines, but it's the ag business, which fits really well within our business program, which is a very popular program. So we're looking forward to rolling that out. And as you heard tonight, fire service leadership. Again, Dr. Sawinski and Ed Burnley from our fire science program. That's going to be a very popular program. Fire folks, we're having to go to other districts outside of our district to get that kind of fire service leadership training. They'll be able to get it from Lewis and Clark now. So any questions on kind of new and upcoming programs? We've got other ones in the works, but too soon to talk about those.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe before we move on, I just want to take a moment, if I could, and just sort of pause for a moment and recognize we walk through a lot of informational items, and I think it's important to recognize the tremendous amount of effort and progress that the team is making around these areas. So I want to thank everyone again for, just listening here, it gets me fired up because, as I recently said in an email to the team, this work can be messy, complicated, sometimes feel dysfunctional, chaotic, but each of you who are doing this work have to step back from yourselves and recognize that, wow, there's some really amazing work, from Revolution Workshop to the CBE efforts to the dynamic broadening of BlendFlex to adding new programs, and then connecting those dots amongst each other. So to the work Maya is doing, and Maya didn't really talk about the work happening on the student affairs side and really how we're trying to recognize and address the gaps that we have between populations in our community that aren't necessarily feeling equal access to our programs. And so how are we creating those pathways and opportunities for upward mobility. So I just commend everyone. I feel like I could talk for hours about how happy I am with the work you're all doing. And I thank the board for continuing to recognize the importance of making those investments. So I know we have some other updates, and we have academics, operations, finance, and student affairs. So I know we talked through a lot, but if our VPs can come up and maybe provide just a little bit more of what's happening, and we can move through those quickly, because I know we have some other things on the agenda still. And specifically, I know we have development and NGREC as well. So, but again, thank you, everyone, and thank you to the board.
I will be brief. You've heard a lot from me tonight, but I'm just going to rattle through some of these updates. Trebuchet competition happened April 8th, and that is thanks to Kevin Bodden and the math and science faculty. Occupational therapy assistant Debbie Witzkin and Ashley Harris have been working hard to prepare for their August self-study, so kudos to them. I already mentioned CNA in Carlinville. We also, Dr. Sunblad and Doyle McClellan are working closely with Google and Microsoft on certificates. We had a little delay with Coursera, which integrates with our Blackboard, and I think that finally got fixed on March 24th. And so Dr. Sunblad and Doyle McClellan are now moving ahead on seeing what the feasibility is for offering those Google and Microsoft certificates. So thank you, Michael, for that work. We are a part of the Early Childhood Education Consortium, which is a statewide consortium, and we'll be getting some funding from the state. And Michael and Melissa Batchelor and I have been meeting to talk about how we're going to spend those dollars. We're also looking at CBE for early childhood. So Melissa Batchelor is a statewide leader, Dr. Batchelor, when it comes to early childhood in the state. So we're very excited about that. The criminal justice program, Jessica Noble and Tricia Martin are working on an FBI camp that they have held for the past several summers. Great opportunity for our students. And I do want to say, if you haven't seen it, go to Hathaway Gallery before April 25th and see the student art show. Amazing work. Some of it is for sale. I know because I bought a piece. So great stuff. I also want to, you know what, Peter Hussey is so humble. He and Jen Klein didn't tell you about Honors College. You might think, oh, they're the good grades club, so of course they're going to have higher GPAs and they're going to retain and complete at a higher rate. Not so. We grow honor students, and Peter Hussey and Jen Klein grow these honor students, and it's the cohort model and the support and the treating these students like adults that brings them. They may have struggled in high school, and they rise to the challenge. So I just want to thank Peter and Jen for their hard work on the program that's very close to my heart. Carl Perkins, we just put in our most recent plan, and just so you know, this is formula-driven federal flow-through money we get from the ICCB, but our programs, our CTE programs wouldn't be what they are in terms of state-of-the-art equipment without Carl Perkins. And Jane Fleming, she is the yin to my yang, okay? I say, Jane, will I go to Perkins Prison if we spend the money this way? And she says, no, you can't spend it this way, or yes, you can. But she is a stickler for detail. She does all our reports, so thank you, Jane, for all that you do there. Adult Ed is doing a March into Fitness project with Carrollton Bank, and the Building Futures Youth Build and AmeriCorps are doing a Piasa Park cleanup with the Sierra Club and with NGREC. So lots of stuff, always fun stuff going on in Adult Ed. They're building some raised garden beds with the YW, and they're continuing to rehab a home on Myrtle Street. So talk about immersion into the community. Adult Ed is really excellent when it comes to that. GED graduation, Thursday, June 9th, 7 p.m. in Hathaway Auditorium. All of our commencements are very special, but I think GED is one of my favorite because those families in that room are so proud of those students. And you'll hear a lot of woohoos and hollering and people clapping, so it's a great thing to be at. Any questions? That's my speed talking update on academic fairs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I apologize, Julie. My notes, there's too many of them, but Item P under information, the compensation structure adjustment, I think if you could talk about that as well.
I just
Okay.
made a note to just mention
Yeah,
that.
thank you.
I'm sure out of interest of time, you know, we can skip over it. We will communicate with the board a little more, but just kind of wanted to preview. As you'll recall, in 2019, when we did adopt the new Gallagher classification and compensation structure, we agreed to fully phase in the implementation of that structure over a period of, I think it was 4 fiscal years, and thanks to the work of the board, we were able to achieve that earlier this year. So we have not adjusted that compensation structure. We did include in policy that we adopted at that time in 2019, just an annual review of that compensation structure. So we have not done that in the past 3 fiscal years. So we are doing that now. Gabe has had multiple conversations with Mark, our consultant with Gallagher. As you can imagine, there's been quite a bit of change in market conditions over the last 4 years. So we will be bringing a recommendation to the board, and of course would take any of your feedback. We'll try to make that a communication item between now and the May board meeting. But it is time to take a look at that and see what the college may want to do in terms of making adjustments to that structure. Just a quick reminder, our service awards for 2020 and 2021 is set for Friday, May 20th in the Commons. You guys should have received a save the date, and a formal evite is being sent out this week. I wanted to share the good news with the board that the Capital Development Board did meet today and approve. We have an architect assigned to the main complex renovation project. So we will be working with Hastings and Chevetta. They are a national company, but they do have offices here in St. Louis and do a ton of work in higher education. As a part of their presentation and as a part of their architect and engineering team, they do have a historic preservation architect who will also be involved in this project. So next steps, our CDB will work with them to finalize a contract, and then they'll be working with us. If I recall their presentation that they made to us, over 18 to 24 months is the timeline they give for that design phase before bid documents are sent out. So lots of internal constituent groups that will be consulted by that team as we move forward. The main complex repair work is moving along, and I just wanted to recognize and introduce Wolf Vaverka, who's here and with us tonight. He is our new maintenance manager, and I know I sent that, and Dr. Traska sent an update to the board. He's really hit the ground running. Just wanted to put a face with the name for you as board members. I'm sure you'll see him at other board meetings as well, but has done a tremendous amount of work, and we're really looking forward to his help in helping us address some of our ongoing facilities issues on campus. So I will leave it at that, as I know Ken has emailed you guys a lot of detail over this past week. But any questions? All right, thank you.
Thanks, Lori. Mary? You're hiding.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome, Joel. I realize that Kevin Tapin has left, but on behalf of the Finance Office, I would like to thank Kevin and his team for the work over the last several years. In spite of the delays and challenges we've encountered, Kevin and his team has hung in there with us. As you know, an audit is required to be filed with the Iccb each year. It involves an audit of the financial statements, grants received from the Iccb, student enrollments, and other data used as a basis for distributing state financial support. For me and many on my team, the audit report feels like the financial summary of everything we and our fellow team members have accomplished in that fiscal year. And as such, I also thank the full Lewis and Clark team for their great work. Last fall, the college engaged Huron Consulting to lead the preparation and negotiation of the college's indirect cost rate with the Department of Health and Human Services, which is our cognizant federal agency. Indirect costs represent the expenses of doing business that are not readily identified with a particular grant, contract, project function, or activity, but yet they're necessary for the general operation of the organization and the activities it performs. Examples would be costs like heat and light, the finance and human resources departments. The preparation work has been completed and our proposal was submitted on March 31st. We are coming off of a 37% on-campus, 16% off-campus rate, which has been in place for the last 2 four-year cycles. The newest negotiated indirect cost rates will be effective July 1 of this year. I'll continue to update you as I learn more as to where we are on the process. Last but not least, work has begun on the fiscal year 2023 budget. Budget documents have been distributed and are due back to Cindy McCoy in the Finance Office tomorrow. She will begin poring over those numbers and holding budget conferences as needed. As you can see from tonight's agenda, discussions around salary have been taking place, and Cindy and I have represented finance as part of the team looking at benefit renewals. As you would know, these are significant items in any budget, and they impact many accounts. And there's still more work to be done in these areas before we're ready to start finalizing numbers for the upcoming fiscal year. Does anyone have any questions? If not, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Mary. And Dr. Adams is good. She's given her an update. So I'll move forward to development. So Debbie, if you don't mind coming up, and then Gary.
Good evening, everyone. April is a busy month for the Lewis and Clark Community College Foundation. We have a board meeting on April 20th, and on April 22nd, the Scholarship Committee will meet to select scholarship recipients for the 22 and 23 academic year. At the board meeting, the directors of the foundation, 3 of whom are in this room tonight, will vote on a slate of officers and a preliminary operating budget for FY23. In that budget is a line item for $125,000 that is restricted to scholarships. In addition, the endowment fund spending policy results and a list of new 2022-2023 academic year merit scholarship recipients will be reviewed. These scholarship recipients are called Distinguished Scholar Awards and Golden Eagle Scholar Awards. In February, we awarded 30 of these scholarships to high school seniors, current high school seniors. These students are in the top 20% of their class. They submitted an application, and their application, based on their class ranking, they qualified for these scholarships. I will say, though, that we were not able to award one of these scholarships to all of the students that qualified. Every year we see more and more applications from these high-achieving seniors in high school, and I think that speaks very highly of how attractive Lewis and Clark Community College has become to students of all academic abilities. We awarded these scholarships early this year in an effort to compete with other institutions that are vying for these students, and we think that that worked based on preliminary data. This is just one of many tweaks to our scholarship program that you will hear about in the upcoming months. I am very much looking forward to working with Dr. Katie Adams and the financial aid team on fine-tuning the scholarship program this summer. A search committee is in the midst of filling the new scholarship program coordinator position that was approved at last month's board meeting. This new team member and Dr. Adams' expertise in this arena will lead the scholarship program into a new, more productive, and much more effective area with regard to enrollment and retention. And I'm very grateful to this board for approving that new position. In addition to scholarship support, the foundation has gladly supported the Trebuchet Competition Honors College, students in the OTA program who recently attended a conference, the Hoopty Challenge by Automotive Technology, and several other college projects and programs. Are there any questions for me tonight?
Awesome work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'll try to be brief. I'd like to start off with some good news this year in working with the state legislature on the annualized budget for National Great Rivers. We were completely successful in maintaining the previous year's funding level $4 million. So we're really happy about that. To facilitate that process, we annually interact with and visit key legislators, and we did that this year, but we also did something else in that we've created a brief newsletter for various governor's office administrative officials and legislators. And so we've had 2 or 3, well, actually we've had one going out, which is a fact sheet that promotes some aspect of what National Great Rivers has accomplished in relation to what we told them that we would do if they were agreeable to increase our appropriation to $4 million. So we have started that process, and so in addition to working directly with legislators, I think keeping them apprised of progress in National Great Rivers is really important. And I say it's like a newsletter, but much briefer, because legislators don't likely read 3 or 4 page documents. They want to see something short and to the point in a paragraph format. That's what we have been doing. I have to say that this year's process was very smooth, and I think the reason for that is that last year we were able to get the $4 million request in the governor's budget. Previously it had not been in there, so there's that continuing battle to try to get legislators to put it in when it's not in the governor's budget. This year it stayed in the governor's budget. We have huge support in the governor's office, so I'm feeling really comfortable with where we are. And I think what that accomplishes for National Great Rivers is it gives us the opportunity to demonstrate that partnerships like this one between a research education entity and a community college like Lewis and Clark can be a valuable avenue for community colleges all around the country to address issues that are critical to their locality, their region, and obviously this river system that we live within here is a critical issue, and I think we serve a good example in that regard. Changing topics, I want to talk a little bit about our River Watch program. As you know, River Watch is a citizen science program where we train citizens around the state to monitor small stream systems, river systems around the state, take data from those systems, do sampling, report that data. We verify the data and put it into our database. It's actually part of the Great Lakes to Gulf comprehensive database that we have. We're in the training process right now, so Dr. Daniel Hawk, who leads this program, has scheduled about 15 or 16 training workshops all around the state. We've done about half of those so far, one of them here on campus, which I learned today went very well. And what that does is it brings citizens all around the state and within this region into a partnership with National Great Rivers to look at and monitor our stream systems. And we think that's a valuable way to encourage citizens to get involved in science. The training process makes sure that it's quality science. Also, our environmental education program this summer is really excited about being able to have a lot more programs in person. So we will have this summer summer camp programs for K through 12 students. There will be a couple of those. There are multiple other student education workshops that will be going on. I think all of those offer opportunities for us to help recruit students that are interested in science into the college, and I think we plan on trying to do that more effectively than maybe we have in the past. We also have a teacher training workshop. We'll be training probably 40 to 50 teachers from around the district as well as all around the country. And the purpose of that is sort of train the trainer concept. If we can help local and regional and nationwide teachers understand more about river systems, they can be a lot more effective in implementing river education programs in their classroom. And then finally, I just want to mention our research experience for undergraduates. As you recall, that's a National Science Foundation program that we've been selected to have an intern program locally. We'll have 8 students this summer. We had 8 students last summer in that NSF funded program. Our traditional intern program will continue this summer in a much smaller way, but we've transitioned that to a full school year program. So in that way, I think that program can actually be even more effective than it's been in the past. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. And I'll keep mine short, believe it or not. So just one thing, a couple things. Had a chance to meet with Dr. James Minor, the new superintendent, the new chancellor at SIUE. It was fantastic, and we are planning a number of follow-ups. Interestingly enough, there was a good discussion around some of the innovative things we're doing, particularly around CBE, stackable credentialing, and how that may link to additional creative pathways into SIUE, something that they are now really interested in kind of thinking about. So sort of really excited about that relationship and where that could go. Had a chance to attend the Higher Learning Commission conference, in particular highlighted by the President Program. And our leadership team will be receiving a book. I'm going to give a copy to the board as well, and kind of use that as a prompt for some discussion around the future of education. And I think kind of reinforce that some of the work that we're specifically doing, we're really ahead of the game here at Lewis and Clark. I can tell you that one of the primary focuses at the President meeting was specifically around some of the work that we're already doing with particularly CBE, and there is a sort of a prediction, and even though I've always suggested we're probably about 10 years behind where we should be, that within the next 3 to 5 years, most all community colleges in the country will be at least 50% CBE. So, when we talk about access and enrollment, or if I say we talk about enrollment is really yielded by the access that we create. So this is one platform to do that. Tomorrow I'll be attending the iGen annual conference. It hasn't been done in person for a few years. So a number of us on the executive team are going to be meeting, and I'm going to be going there to just kind of learn a little bit more about other partner colleges and really ways that we can actually help collaborate with them as well. We talked a little bit about athletics tonight, but there's a couple of other work teams I've updated the board on, and the team related to our competency-based education work, as well as the career and tech education and West work. Those work teams are coming more or less to the point where they have some recommendations. I was able to sit in on the CTE team today and kind of go back and forth and share some thoughts and ideas and reflect on the work they've done. The next step is we're going to actually bring the CBE team and the CTE teams together because there is some overlap, and then plan to bring some recommendations to the board in the coming months. So some really good work being done there on that team. So I'll stop there, and I mean, that's it for me. And again, just want to, reinforce my sentiment that I'm grateful to the team and the work that they're all doing, and I know we'll continue to be successful, so thank you. And that concludes my comments.
Yeah, I just have one real quick question.
Please go ahead.
On the HLC thing that you went to in Chicago, do we have some Zoom attendees from?
Yeah, we did. We had,
Any idea how many?
we had a number of Zoom, 7, I want to say, Dr. Lane, I know, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, most of the writing team, so yeah, attended.
7 or so?
7
Okay.
or so, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, yep. So I'm back now with the mover team update. Well, that's, really, it's sort of redundant, but the work that Brett spoke about earlier is really folded into the mover teams. What we've, wanted to do is sort of consolidate those teams where they have to have a connection to each one of the key directions. It doesn't mean that team members can't initiate a unique mover team going forward, but there has to be a link to one of our key directions. So, that process is just being reframed to continue to promote its success. So that's all I've got on that one, but it's good stuff. Thank you. And I guess that's it.
Okay, next item on the agenda is adjourned to closed session. There'll be no action during closed session, but the board will return to open session to take action and formally close the meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn to closed session?
Motion.
Dwight?
Second.
Kevin? Okay, call for the vote, Sue? Oh, any discussion? Call for the vote, Sue.
Barker,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
Rust,
Yes.
Hanfelder,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
McCain,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes,
Thank you.
motion carried. Okay, I have a motion to resume open session?
So moved.
Okay, roll call, call for the vote.
Okay. Barker,
Second.
Say yes.
Did you need one?
okay. Is Barker in there?
Yeah, go ahead, Joel.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes,
Russ,
Yes.
Hanfelder,
Enfielder.
Yes.
thank you. Trent,
Yes.
thank you.
all right.
So
Motion carried.
resuming at 11:01.
Okay, and we're going to start with the action item, amended policy 301. Do I have a motion?
Want a motion to table 301 and 302? And B?
It was
Include
just
them all
301,
together?
I thought, wasn't it?
I think we have to have a motion to approve it and a second, and then
A
I'm
table?
gonna move to table it. Maybe we don't have to do it that way. Dennis, are you on?
You're correct.
Yes, I'm on. Wondering if we need to approve or to open the motion, have a first and second, and then we have somebody wants to table it. Is that the way we have to do it, or can we just move right to a table motion? Under your board policy where you've adopted kind of the rules of reasonableness, you've not necessarily adopted specifically the Robert Rules of Orders. I think you could do it whatever is most convenient. Either way, a motion to table will take precedence over a motion to approve. Okay, so,
I move to table 301.
Second?
okay, discussion?
Who was the second?
I think that we're going to talk about this in May. We're not voting it down. We're going
Work on
to discuss it
changes.
in May.
Yep.
Modify it slightly. No more discussion. Let's call for the vote.
Was the second trustee Russ?
Joel, that's you.
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes?
It'd be David, because he made the motion.
That's right.
Hyen,
Yes?
thank you. McCain,
Yes.
Wertz, Wertz,
If you said words, yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Johnson,
Johnson.
Johnson, yes.
Hanfelder, Hanfelder,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
Can somebody take Sue out from underwater?
She just went in a closet. Okay, motion to table passed. Okay, amended policy 302's action item. Do you have a motion to approve amended policy 302?
Motion.
Dwight? Larry, second. Any discussion? Okay, call for a vote.
Yes.
What?
Wertz, Wertz,
Yes.
Trent, Trent,
Yes.
McCain,
Yes.
thank you. Ryan,
No.
Johnson,
Yes.
Rust,
Yes.
Hanfelder,
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, motion carried. Okay, our next item, do I have a motion to approve settlement agreement and mutual release with Houston Area Safety Council?
Motion.
Dwight?
Second. Yeah.
Chuck? Any discussion? Seeing none, call for the vote.
Rucker,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
Hanfelder, Hanfelder,
He said yes.
Trent,
Yes.
thank you. McCain,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Rust,
Yes.
Okay, motion carried. All right, is that it?
I think we
being-
have the contract amendment on the agenda with the Houston Area Safety Council. And as best as I can tell, going through Matt Gardner's emails, we have not received that from the Houston Area Safety Council.
Okay, yeah, it's my fault. I see it on here now. So he said there's an item on the agenda for amended contract with Houston Area Safety Council. So do we need to vote to table that item?
That would have to
Yeah.
be tabled until we
Yeah,
get that
table till
from
May.
the, right.
No motion, just pass?
I
I
think we
moved
just
it.
passed it because the item wasn't fulfilled by, yeah, so we're fine.
Right, there's
I'll move
nothing
to-
to vote, there's nothing to vote on
Nothing
or
to
to
vote on or
table.
table,
We've
right.
never received it, right?
Okay.
All right, there being no further business, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Yeah.
Call for the vote?
I'm having too much fun. Let's stay.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, everyone.